Hey, in this video, I actually want to share how I already, since 3 years, built a database for go-to-market knowledge and expert resources from both LinkedIn posts and GTM podcast into Notion, and how I connect this with GPT to eventually create all kind of practical, actionable playbooks, checklists, action lists, scorecards, role plays for myself, for my teams, and for anyone in the community to use. So here we go. As you can see here, this is nothing less than just a database in Notion, where you can actually see all the different, in this case, it's already almost 7,000 LinkedIn posts. I've done the same, as you can see here, for all different kind of GTM podcasts. And I actually just want to show you how this works. As an example, I see here a post which is relevant, yesterday shared by Jen. In this case, I always select, and yes, this is manual picked, because I don't like scraping. I want to control the input for the own database. I copy the first sentence. I have a plugin, in this case from Notion. I write always down the first name and the first sentence, and I click on save. The thing it does, it directly, as you can see, it connects towards the database. And maybe I went too fast there, but you see here, you can always connect the different database in which you want the post or other source to be connected towards. In this case, if I open it up, I've selected or I've created the database in a way that it automatically understands, in this case as well, it has all the different content creators, which I like to follow because I value their input. It automatically recognized the name, so I don't have to do anything there. Same for the different personas, as you can see here as well. I've set all different kind of go-to-market personas. Same for the category groups. I really want to dissect between strategical, tactical, and operational GTM advice and other functions, and so on. So the same thing I did for challenges, for solutions, for learning, and eventually I asked it to also be able to create a checklist, because I always like to make it as practical and consumable and actionable as possible. Long story short, I will show you, because the post I already saved yesterday, it automatically, without me doing anything, it creates this output. It actually dissects the post into meaningful, practical tips and tricks, which I can use. Like I said, I've done this already for 3 years, so it's quite a rich but manual pick database. The same I've done with podcasts. So as you can see here, at the end, this is just a transcription of the entire podcast, a very relevant one from last week, from Topline by Pavilion. And also here, as you can see, everywhere where you see AI, it's automatically created with a small prompt. So in this case, list all the key questions. I've done, for instance, the same at the end, because I actually want to collect at the end of a podcast where typically we know there's relevant stuff mentioned. I want to collect that specific tips and tricks, because there's always a summary at the end. Also collect these. Um, Sounds very simple, but of course, it's a very manual and labor intensive process. But I rather save the information rather than scrolling and doing nothing again with that piece of information. So that's why I started collecting all these resources. Then, next step, we have created, and Simon and myself, Simon is an expert when it comes to no code and building these databases, and also really on the urge of AI. We've built a GPT connecting these databases towards a GPT. And in order to help you to make it as practical as possible, we've created a workflow, because this workflow, and I will show you an example, guides you step by step to narrow down your search. And I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make. When using AI, you need to have specific LLMs, if you ask me, because otherwise the database is too large. And you need specific questions, specific prompts. And if you narrow this down, you get really specific and relevant output. So in this case, I always ask what kind of persona you are, what kind of buyer journey you're looking for specific advice. I actually want to break it even down into what kind of category group, what specific categories of advice do you need. And every time when you put input, and I do it through voice notes, therefore maybe you see some mistakes made in the questions, because I voice prompt and don't type. Every time it narrows down your search and it reads your answers, and again it helps to narrow down. So at the end, I really asked, like, hey, that was also my ask. I need to go up market. I want to go up market. Please help me out. So first, I always ask for all different kind of output. In this case, you see examples from, for instance, Chris Walker. This is the post I saved already more than a year ago. Here is the entire dissected post in all different kind of elements, and that's feed into this database. As you can see, Sam Jacobs, Cal Aga, podcast, it really goes on and on. I always say, like, I want more diverse resources. It's a very rich database. I want to have many different perspectives on the topic before, in this case, I want to build a playbook. So you see all different kinds of experts and resources, whether this is LinkedIn posts, whether this is podcasts, which are selected. And again, as you can see, this is typically how I like to work. I go on and on because I want to have the most rich answers and perspectives and expert advice on this really specific topic going up market. Um, as you can see, I will just go on for some time, and then I actually say, like, hey, what's next? I want to turn this into a playbook. What I've also done for myself, and yes, I also leverage AI for this, I've created a defined playbook where I actually really say, okay, if I build playbooks, it should always have the same structure: key challenge, key solution, key learnings, what does good look like. And I want to really narrow it down to make it practical, make it actionable. And I asked to trim it down in actionable strategies who always have the same layout. So, what does good look like? What are the common mistakes, and how to execute this in 7 steps. And you'll later on see I like to work with these 7 steps. So, like you see here as well, I always define the key metrics which is along on this specific topic, in this case going up market, and I always want to turn it into a checklist, as you also can see over here. Then I actually go towards my GPT, and I just say, like, hey, we want to build this playbook together. And I just copy paste, in this case, the playbook. There you can see it actually creates, based on this template, a quite interesting playbook with actionable strategies. But for instance, I'm actually missing the checklist. And this is my key thing. Continuously, I'm asking for reviewing its output, because the first version is fine, but obviously AI can make mistakes. And by reviewing itself, it actually iterates and reviews its own output. So I ask a few times just to review its own output. And step by step, I get hopefully eventually better output. I don't like emoticons, so I also am very specific. Remove all emoticons, review the template. I completely miss, for instance, the checklist part. So check the output of AI. Yes, this costs time, but come on. You really need to eventually, if you want to build something of quality, you need to dive deeper into this, right? So that's also what I'm doing. So I'm keep or voice prompting or typing towards a GPT to narrow down, in this case, like what I want from in this case the playbook I'm creating, and I see now a refined version. A refined version who, if I scroll down quickly, it's still um yeah, it's still not 100% like how like I want it. So I keep iterating. In this case, I've made a, previous upmarket playbook, and I just copy paste all the input from what I've previously created. So actually, it can leverage all the different sources from what I've co-created before. And I mean, I can go on working on this forever. But like you see here, it's based on my iterations, comes up with like a new version. Then I don't like the checklist, so I go on and go on just until I think I actually really have the right output. And last, and that's no secret for myself, but also when I create my newsletters, I have created a template for the newsletter. And based on those playbooks, which we've seen over here, I'm also able to create at least a draft of the newsletter. Um, I share the template, as you can see here, and there it comes. It also creates like a newsletter template, and in this way I'm able to create a newsletter, to create a playbook, and share this eventually with yourselves. So if I, for instance, now go towards my Substack, you can see here as well, this is like one of the templates eventually put into like a newsletter, which I iterate. As always, I just go over the text and I iterate and make it more specific. In the end, what I'm creating, and this is just the example I want to show you. So the upmarket playbook. So we've co-created this based on all different kind of sources. Let me double check if that's still like all the different sources I leveraged. It also referenced myself. But of course, these are the real key content creators. And then eventually, I really work in Figma slightly just to make it more visually appealing. But as you can see here, you actually see here the playbook which we've co-created. And again, I really make sure I go over it, I refine, I make it visually more appealing. I make shortcuts because as you can see here, these are all shortcuts towards the action plan, towards the checklist, towards the scorecard, and eventually towards the experts. Because what I found very important when I build these kind of playbooks, that I'm actually leveraging or that I'm also referring towards the experts. Because I'm not the expert, I'm just the one who's collecting the collective wisdom shared on podcast and on LinkedIn. And as you can see here, I always reference towards my Notion database and towards the initial source of the different sources which I'm leveraged for building this playbook. I know this is a very long iteration of how to build, in this case, playbooks, but I just wanted to show you what you can actually do with not scrolling over LinkedIn. And I would just go back to watch one of those posts, put it into a database, let AI do the work. As you can see, in the meantime, I will remove this post because it's twice in the database, but you see that it automatically summarized this specific post. And by doing so, on a continuous basis, I'm already doing this for 3 years, I am able to build a database of collective wisdom on podcasts, on LinkedIn posts. I connect it towards a GPT. Everyone nowadays can build those GPTs. I make sure it is a workflow to help you and the others. So you don't have to think too much. You will get step by step the actions and the questions to narrow down your search. And eventually you can build whatever you want. I like to build playbooks. Why? With these playbooks, with these checklists, with these scorecards, I can give back towards the community. So that's like what I'm trying to do with all the databases which I've collected, which is like, let's say, semi-unstructured data. I'm at least trying, just give you some other examples. I'm trying to build playbooks in a more structured way, dissect into actionable and practicable output so you or the ones in your teams can leverage this collective wisdom. Hopefully, this was just interesting to highlight step by step how you're able to leverage collective wisdom, which is shared. Let the power of AI help you to make it practical so you can improve your go to market strategies, your technical stuff, or your operational excellence in or within your teams. If you find this as interesting, I write about this all the time on my Substack. So go towards my Substack, koenstam.substack.com, and I'm sharing all the playbooks one by one, lessons learned. I love to chat with you in the Substack. Have a lovely day.